Hey friends, it's Miss Patty at the Art Circle Library. We have a program for you today. It's going to be live for us and on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram for you all. Summer reading started Monday. We know several of you have signed up on Read Squared, and we're excited about that. If you haven't or you need some help, please come see us at the library, and we will help you as best we can while social distancing. All right, today we have Mr. Ron Anglin from Quite a Catch, and he is going to share some things with us, and I will let him do that. And we are so excited that he's here. So clap your hands just like you're here at the library. And here we are, Mr. Ron.
Merci beaucoup, Patty. Bienvenue, je m'appelle Ron, jongleur de Notre Dame. Why do you look like that, Miss Patty? You don't speak the Francais?
No.
Parlez-vous Français?
No parlez-vous Français.
Then I will do this in English. And what I said was, welcome, my name is Ron, and this is the jongleur de Notre Dame. Now you may ask yourself, what is a jongleur? And most of you are like, oh, it's just a juggler. But no, they were people who lived hundreds of years ago. They traveled around in what was called the Dark Ages, and they had three jobs. They sang songs, they told stories, and they did tricks. Now today we're just known for doing tricks, and you probably know they wore funny hats. So I thought I would wear my funny hat to start off with and sing a song. You may recognize it. It was a hit a few years ago. I whip my hair all around. I whip my hair all around. I whip my hair all around. I whip my hair. Whip my hair right off. Oh well, I'll just have to forget about the hair, and I'll just leave the hat over there. But I want to tell you a story about the original Jongleur de Notre Dame, and it's a book. It's a fairy tale that was written down by a man named Anatole France. It's been made into a movie, it's been made into an opera, and it's a great story. And I want to tell you about this little boy whose name was Jacques, who lived in Paris hundreds of years ago. He was an orphan, he was poor, and he was hungry. Now, I want to play a game with you to get you guys in the mood for my story. You know how to play Simon Says?
Yes.
Well, in France, they play Jacques D, which is Jack Says. So if I say the word Jacques D, do it with me. If I don't say Jacques D, don't do it, like Simon Says. Okay, so you guys ready to play at home? Here we go. Jacques D, raise your hands. Okay, put them back down. You're out. Miss Patty put her hands down. I hope you didn't. But let's try again. Ready? Here we go. Jacques D, touch your ear. Jacques D, touch your nose. Jacques D, touch your chin. That's your cheek. Miss Patty, this is your chin.
Chin.
Yes, you touched your cheek.
I did.
That's it.
So I'm out again.
You're out again. Oh well. We'll play this later. But let me move on with the story, because Jacques, this hungry little boy, decided that he needed to get something to eat. So before grocery stores, there were open air markets. They're still around in some towns now. But he went down to the local market and he saw a fruit vendor and a vegetable vendor. And he decided that he would walk up and just borrow an apple. Now in French, this is pronounced le pomme. He also got an orange. Now how do you think they say orange in French? Orange. You have to say it like that. And he also found a lemon. How do you think they say lemon?
Lemon.
It's not lemon, it's citron.
Oh.
So a citron is a lemon, and if you add the word vert, which is green, a green lemon, that's a lime, un citron vert.
Oh.
If you say pomme de terre, that's an apple of the earth, or a potato. So the French is a lovely language, but Jacques, without the owner's permission, started juggling the three pieces of fruit. And he juggled with the crisscross. And he juggled with them going straight up and down. And he juggled in a circle. He juggled off his foot. He juggled off his knee. Off his elbow. Off his head. Ow! He juggled the opposite way. He threw one behind his back. He caught it on his hand. He got really fancy and he threw the apple up on his head. Whoops, too high. I get a do-over.
Yes.
I used to work at SeaWorld. I made 3 fish a day. And he did one we call crisscross applesauce. Now watch closely. And then the vendor saw Jacques juggling the fruit, and he yelled, "Little boy! What are you doing?" And Jacques was like, "I was juggling the fruit. I was hoping you would let me eat some of it." And the owner was kind of mad, but then he looked up and he saw all these people gathered around watching the little boy juggle the fruit. And he said, "You keep juggling the fruit and I will give you an apple." So Jacques found himself with a job. And he got better and better at juggling. He actually learned how to juggle 4. So let me get some bean bags. And he did 4 like this. Now, would you like to see 4 go in a circle?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. That was cheap. But he learned to do it the hard way. Like that. And Jacques became a famous juggler or jongleur in France. He became a man, and one day he had a bad day. He decided that he would show off his final trick and juggle 5 balls. Now 5 balls takes a long time to learn, and Jacques had learned it. And when he tried to do the 5 balls, let me not look at the light. It started off well, and then all 5 hit the ground. And you know what the crowd did? Boo! And they walked away. And Jacques' career as a jongleur was over. It was horrible.
That's sad.
Jacques became poor again. Jacques became hungry. Jacques became an old man. And one day he found himself in the wintertime, very cold, very hungry. There's a giant church in Paris, and he put himself down on the steps. And the church is called Notre Dame, which in French means Our Mother. And Notre Dame is a very famous church. It's a symbol of Paris, France. It was 850 years old last year when it burned to the ground. But in our story, Jacques is at the church, and the monks see him, and they bring him in because they wanted to help him. They fed him, and they said, "If you want to stay here, help us clean the church, we'll let you stay and we'll feed you." So Jacques became a ward of Notre Dame. And he looked around during the holiday season and noticed that there was a pile of food and gifts and clothing at the base of the statue in the sanctuary. The statue was a very serious looking statue, the Mother Mary holding a baby Jesus. Now guys, I want to see your most serious face. Jacques wanted to give a gift to the poor, even though he was poor himself. And he fought long and he fought hard. I don't have money, but I can still juggle. So he decided to do his best trick. So what he did is he got the ingredients to build a seesaw. And this is the water pipe and a board. And he got his juggling pins. We call these clubs. And to juggle clubs, it's a lot harder because you have to flip it and catch it on the skinny end. But before I do the final trick, let me tell you, if you want to learn to juggle, don't start with bean bags, don't start with clubs, don't start with chainsaws. Start with a nylon scarf. Now this is something women tie in their hair. I'm so pretty. And it floats like a parachute. When I was in the Army jumping out of airplanes, this is the same material they make parachutes from. It's called the parachute effect. But if you can't find these, just go down to Dollar General. All you have to do is throw a rock and you'll hit a Dollar General or Walmart and get this out of the environment. This is a plastic grocery bag. Cut it in half. It also acts like a parachute. And the pattern we teach is called the cascade. Put 2 in one hand and 1 in the other. Draw the letter X and just continue. Always start with the hand holding 2. Hit the corners of an imaginary window, and that is called the cascade juggling pattern. And the cool part is people who learn to juggle, your brain actually gets bigger by about 3%. And it helps you be a better reader. So now let me finish my story. Jacques has got his clubs. He has put the seesaw in front of the statue, and he is going to juggle on top of the seesaw. Now before I do that, let me warm up. Make sure I got the juggle going. Okay. These are single spins, doubles. There's a triple. Here's a fancy flourish. Whee! Yes.
Whoa.
Oh well.
That was awesome.
I'll try it one more time. Here's a fancy flourish. Don't have the fingers straight.
That's all right.
So we can do it without
We
it.
see.
All right, one more try. Third time's a charm. The fancy flourish. Yeah!
Yeah, do.
Under the leg. Yeah, I'm a lot safer now. Oh!
Oh.
Maybe not. But Jacques got on top. Balanced himself precariously. And juggled in front of the statue as his gift. And when he was doing it, 2 monks walked in and they yelled out, Jacques! What are you doing? This is the church. Don't do that in here. And Jacques was like, I was just trying to give my gift to the... And they all looked up at the statue. You remember how I told you the statue looked? Now the statue was smiling. And this is called the Miracle of Notre Dame. It's a fairy tale, but it's a wonderful story because what Jacques discovered is that the best gift that you can give anybody is yourself. The talents that we have, the talents that you have, it's hard to figure them out sometimes, but once you find your gift, the best thing to do is to give it away to others, because the world would be a much better place if we all did that. So that's the story of the jongleur of Notre Dame. And I consider myself a modern jongleur. I travel all around the country and do shows for kids in schools and libraries. And I also work as a jongleur in the hospitals. And the program I work for is called Humorology Atlanta. I brought my coat. And the character I play in the hospitals is called Dr. Tiny. And we work in 3 Atlanta hospitals, and we're going to start in a Columbus hospital soon. And we work 8 days a week, 2 clowns at a time, and we go into what can be a very scary place and try to make it less scary. And we do it with the talents that we have. And one thing that we use a lot in the hospital is something you can do. And I learned this from a book called Bubble Magic. But this is a bottle of soap bubbles. And if you practice, you can do some really cool bubble tricks. A man named Tom Noddy, N-O-D-D-Y, wrote the book, Bubble Magic. These are just regular bubbles. But if you want to do bubble tricks, what we do is we add a little bit of sugar to the mix. The sugar comes in the drugstore. It's called glycerin, but you could actually just use a little bit of table sugar. And what I'm going to do is get a little bitty straw, and this is how we do the tiny bubbles. So watch. Those are tiny bubbles. So it's like being inside a jacuzzi or a bottle of Sprite. I'm going to put this away and tell you that if you lick your finger and blow a medium-sized bubble, watch what happens when you pop it. Or actually listen.
What?
Well, you don't have to lick your finger. What you have to do is put a beeper inside. A little squeaker. And that's what they put inside a chew toy for a dog. So if you go to Petco or places like that, you can find these. You hide it in your hand, and you can squeak bubbles. Whoops. Check it out. And this is how we squeak our nose, our belly button. I brought my nose, by the way. I'm going to tell you that all a nose is a piece of sponge. It's painted red. I went to Hobby Lobby and got these 2 strings and put beads on it. But if I put this on my nose, it doesn't change who I am. It just makes me look silly. And this is a hat that a young girl gave me who was fighting cancer. When you take chemicals, they call it chemotherapy, one of the side effects is your hair can fall out. And so a lot of the young ladies and boys like to wear a hat. So they give me that. Get my bubbles. Let me show you a really cool trick. You're very gentle, you can catch bubbles. Watch this.
Oh, wow.
That's a fun trick to do.
Woo.
If you wear cotton sleeves, hopefully that's sweating too much, you can bounce bubbles.
What?
Little bounce. Dr. Gizmo on our team holds a record with 52 bounces of a single bubble before I popped it. He broke my record.
You helping him out.
But my best trick, I say the best for last, we call this the mommy bubble. See the mommy bubble inside?
There's two. Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
And this trick, if you blow to the side of the bubble, you can make a lot of bubbles. Look too close. Try it again.
That's awesome.
So again, I learned all this from reading a book. But why are we blowing bubbles in the hospital? It's because when children see needles, they go, ah, and they get all tense. And a needle hurts a lot more if you try to put it in somebody that's got tight muscles. When they see bubbles, they're like, oh. And they pop the bubbles and they forget about the fact that they're in a hospital with a needle headed their way. And I've seen this hundreds of times. What was that? You're done. And it takes away the sting of the needle because laughter truly is the best medicine. So those are tricks you can learn with the soap bubble. And let me put this down. Let me tell you another powerful thing that we use in the hospital work is music. Now, I never learned music as a child. I was able to sing, but I had never learned music. And about 7 years ago, the clown who led our teams sadly passed away, and we still miss him. And he was our best musician too. But Dr. Okidoki walked over to me and he said, "Time for you to learn this." And he handed me a ukulele, and I freaked out. I can't play it. He said, "Hush, read the book." And the book told me that this is much easier to learn than a guitar, because a guitar has 6 strings. Banjos have 5, but a ukulele only has 4. And if you learn 4 chords, you can play 1,000 songs. And I'm not exaggerating. And the 4 chords you want to learn, 2 of them only take 1 finger. So I'll show you.
Awesome.
You put 1 finger here on the bottom string. That's called a C chord. You put 1 finger on the top string, A minor. You put 1 more finger down, that's an F. If you put 3 fingers in a triangle right there, that's a G. And if you know those 4, you can play, this is our #1 song, by the way. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And I've learned a lot of other songs. You may recognize this one. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's a different song.
It is a different
Yeah,
song.
I know a different song.
Okay.
Baba Black Sheep, have you any wool? And if you recognize that's the same tune, it's actually a French tune called a Vous dirigez maman, which in English means, oh, you tell me, Mom. And a guy named Mozart heard that as a child. Nobody knows who wrote it, but he wrote his variations on it. That's a very famous classical piece. A couple of 100 years later, a woman named Jane Addams wrote a poem. There's 5 verses to the poem, but the first verse everybody knows, and it got set to Mozart's themes on the variations of the Vous dirigez maman, and that's why we play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I actually can play that song for children who can't hear. Let me show you how to play it for someone who is deaf, but I'll teach you Twinkle Twinkle. Here's how you twinkle. Okay, here's how you say little, and here's how you say star. You point to all the stars. Now be careful with that last one, because if you point down, that means your socks, and you don't want to twinkle socks. It's hard to get that out. But twinkle, twinkle, little star. And the way to say thank you is to put your hand on your cheek or chin, on your chin, and drop it down. So thank you. Now, I'm going to get the ukulele. And and show you that with those 4 chords, you can play songs like this one. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, lion sleeps tonight. Woo! Why are you looking like that? Okay, I'll stop.
Never mind.
But I want to tell you the story of a young girl that I met who's from my hometown. This story actually got published in a book called Beyond the Red Nose, and I'll bring you up to speed because at 2 years old, my friend Dakota was in a car accident, and her grandmother had to raise her because her mother did not survive the accident, and she had a lot of damage to her head. She has brain damage, and she's learning to do amazing things, but her speech is slurred, and she can't speak a lot of words in her vocabulary. And she had a procedure at the hospital 2 summers ago that was supposed to take 2 days. It ended up lasting 4 months. And when I went to visit her, because I heard she was in the hospital, the nurse stopped me and said, "Dr. Tiny, you can't go in there." I said, "Why?" "She's in a coma." I said, "Oh." But I said, "Can I go see the grandmother? I know the family." And they said, "Okay." So I went in and the grandmother hugged me. She said, "Please play for my child anyway." And I said, "Sure." And I played, "How much is that doggy in the window?" And that's her favorite song. And I knew that because I knew the girl. And I don't know if she heard me or not, but the mother asked me to, so I did it for her. Well, 4 months later, when it was time for her to go home, now she's out of the coma, she's sitting up and she's smiling, and I went in with Dr. Neatney, and we both play ukulele a little bit. We know those 4 chords, and we played our song, and before we left, Dakota raised up one finger and said, "1." And I looked at grandmother, and she said, "Can you play another song?" Now, remember, I'm a beginning ukulele player. I don't know a lot of songs, but I know those 4 chords. And the only song I could think of, for some reason, was by Justin Bieber. My clown partner looked at me like, "Really, you're going to go there?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I started playing. "Are we entitled? Girl, you play it. We're just friends. What are you saying? That there's another light in my eyes. My first love broke my heart for the first time." Now, you may remember that song, but Dakota loved it. And when I got to the chorus, she started singing with me word for word because she could say baby. She started singing with me, "Baby, baby, baby, oh. Baby, 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 oh." And when I finished the song, the grandmother looked at me and she said, "How did you know her favorite song?" I said, "Well, I knew Doggy in the Window. I didn't know she loved that one." She said, "She sings it all the time." So just by the way things go, sometimes you hit the right chord, you hit the right song. And we had a wonderful time. So if I ever see her again, because she's a frequent flyer, I play that song for her, and she rocks back and forth in her wheelchair, and she sings at the top of her lungs, "Baby, baby." And that story is in a book, again, called Beyond the Red Nose. And speaking of books, if you like the Jongleur story, a wonderful author who sadly we lost this year, named Tommy DePaula, who wrote over 200 and illustrated over 200 books. He wrote this and he illustrated it. It is beautifully done. It's one of the prettiest books I've ever seen. And it's called The Clown of God. But let me warn you, Tommy likes to be dramatic, and he changed the ending from the original happy ending. If you ever watched The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney movie, you see the character of the jester, which is based on the Festival of Fools story, the Jongleur story that Anatole France wrote down. And this story is a little bit sad. So please, parents, if you have a 3 or 4-year-old child, don't read it to them verbatim. You may want to kind of tweak the ending, or make sure your child is old enough, but just check it out before you read it. Don't be surprised by the ending of this wonderful book, The Clown of God by Tommy DePaula. Now, I want to show you a few more tricks that I do in the hospital. I'm going to take my nose off, my hat. And show you 3 wooden blocks. Now, when I do these tricks, kids think I'm cheating. They're like, "Those have magnets on them." Well, they don't. It's just wooden blocks. And what I do is I bend my knees up and down so that I have time to move the boxes around. If you stand still and try to do it, gravity's going to make it fall. And I got a book when I was a kid. My parents gave it to me for Christmas called Box Manipulation and Manipulative Miscellanea by a man named Reginald Bacon. And I found out from reading that book that if I wanted to do the tricks, I could bend my knees, raise my arms or use my back, but doing it with your knees looks the best. So these are called box manipulations. Now this is called takeout. I took the middle box out. That's a takeover. Now I'm going to do it left-handed because I'm amphibious. No, I'm sorry, ambidextrous. And now I'm going to do a trick we call the typewriter. Now, usually I don't do this for small children because you guys don't know what a typewriter is. Don't say it's a keyboard because it's not. And I hear you saying, okay, boomer, I heard you. Okay, I'm a boomer. Yes, I am proud of it. But this is called a typewriter. Watch the pink box. That wasn't it. I get a do-over because it's my show.
Yes. Absolutely.
That wasn't it either.
It's okay.
They say third time's a charm.
Yep. We got it.
That was it. This is called the basketball twirl.
Wow.
And I'd like to do another seal impression. First time I did, a little girl came up to me and said, hey, Mr. Juggler, you didn't look like a seal. Oh, thank you. You look more like a walrus.
Oh, no.
True story. Or. Now you say, Juggler, that doesn't look impressive because you're only using 3 boxes. I would say you're right. So what I will attempt to do now is the 9-box balance. I thought I got all my boxes up there, didn't I? I did not. I got distracted.
There are more.
So I have 4 on the table, I have 5 in my hands now.
That's a lot.
So when this works, it's called the 9-box balance. When it doesn't, it's called sorry about that front row. But there's no front row, so
That's all right.
we're just out of luck there.
Wow.
All right, here's the tough part. Remember this. There we go. Thank you.
That's awesome.
And I want to close my show with my favorite toy. It is called the Chinese yo-yo.
Yes.
When I work at the hospital, I take the Chinese yo-yo and I wrap it around my neck like this. And it becomes my bow tie. And when a child says, what's that? I take it off and I do tricks. Before I show you my tricks, let me be honest and tell you that I got this when I was 8 years old and I had no other instructions except throw it in the air and have fun. That's what the package said. There was no other instructions. There weren't any books about it either. And remember, this is like 1972, and I had fun because I figured out that if I threw it up in the air and caught it, that I really enjoyed that. And when I went to the Atlanta Jugglers and did that, throwing it up in the air from right to left because I'm right-handed, one of them walked over and said, why are you throwing it backwards? And I said, what? And then I looked down. What happened to the spin, guys? It's not spinning anymore. He said, didn't you read the book? And I went, oh, they wrote a book about this? He let me borrow it. It's by Todd Strong. It's called the Diablo, or Chinese Yo-Yo book. And I read that I did this backwards for 27 years. I had to turn it around and throw it the other way from left to right. So watch what happens this time, guys, when I go from left to right. it's rolling downhill, and stuff called friction and gravity are giving it what we call momentum. And if you want to do tricks, it's got to have a lot of that momentum. And then you can do this one. This is called the elevator, going up. So once I learned the right way to do this, it opened up the world for me. I've done almost 8,000 shows now. I've been in like 32 states. And I love doing this. It's the best thing I've ever got to do in my life. And I hope you enjoy my Chinese yo-yo routine. So let me put away the one that looks like a zebra. Then I'll get my green one. And make sure the string is not all torqued up. When you have high humidity, they do that. So you just feel like it's a towel and dry off. And that takes the torque out of the string.
Cool.
And now, we'll get it started. And my favorite trick that I always like to start off with is one you can do with a regular yo-yo. I'm sure if you've ever played with a regular yo-yo, you've heard of this trick. It's called walk the dog. My second trick I like to do is called walk the cat. Okay, not today. This trick is called the trampoline. Boing, 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 boing. This one is called around the arm.
Wow.
Let go of the stick. Fancy flourish.
Wow.
This trick is called the double cat's cradle. This one is called around the leg. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. This trick is called the umbrella. Ella, Ella, eh, eh, eh. This one's called time flies when you're having fun. This trick is called the combination trick. Over the shoulder, through the coffee grinder, up to the cradle, and out. And now, I'm going to try the whip catch. When it works, when it doesn't, it's just called the whip. So to close the show, I'm going to get my second yo-yo. This took me a long time to learn. My son, my dad, my sister, anybody that I could pester, I made them throw it in until I learned how to do it by myself. But we get one yo-yo started, second yo-yo in, and they're going to do this thing we call the Ferris wheel.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the key is you have to touch them so that they stay in line and land on the string. So once they get them evened out, you can do what we call the double knee stall. You can catch one on the stick again, drop it back in. This is the trapeze to the left, to the right. I'm going to try around the world between the arms. The last trick we're going to try is called the hyperloop.
Yay!
Thank you. I want to close by saying that when I work at the hospital, most of that I cannot do safely, and that's what security told me anyway. So I have to be very careful. Here's the trick I do for a child in the hospital. You got to remember, some of these kids have been there for weeks, and their body is weak. They aren't very strong. And I tell them that they cannot untie my impossible knot. So I do this trick where I tie it into a knot, and I get my clown friend to pull on it, and they can't untie it. Then I hand it to the kid in the bed, and they pull on it, and it comes right off. And they have a big smile on their face, and then I have to go and clean my yo-yo for 3 minutes because we have to wipe it down because of hygiene. But I love letting a kid untie that because I learned a long time ago, just like the jongleur of Notre Dame learned a long time ago. It's not about you and what you can do, it's about what you can do for others. So find your gift and then give it away. Thank you very much for your time.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
I love it. Yay. Okay, friends, that's our program for today. Keep watching. We'll have more things over the summer. Bye.